Trump urges Putin to halt attacks. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers are dying weekly. On Thursday, U.S. President Donald Trump condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin following a large-scale overnight assault on Ukraine that resulted in 12 deaths and over 90 injuries. The former president expressed his disapproval of the timing and necessity of the strikes, labeling them as poorly timed and avoidable. I'm very displeased with the Russian attacks on Kyiv. They're unnecessary and come at a terrible time. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers are dying every week. Trump posted on his Truth social platform in a rare public rebuke of the Kremlin leader. The assault, which targeted Kyiv with waves of missiles and drones, marked the most lethal attack on the Ukrainian capital since July. Explosions echoed across the city for nearly 11 hours, forcing residents into shelters through the night. At least 5 neighborhoods were hit, with significant damage to residential buildings and dozens wounded. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced he would cut short his trip to South Africa and return to Ukraine in the aftermath of the strikes, which he described as among the most egregious Russia has carried out. Though historically restrained in his criticism of Russia, Trump urged Putin to stop the violence. Senior American officials have cautioned that without progress in peace talks, the U.S. might soon withdraw from efforts to mediate the conflict. According to Ukraine's Air Force, the Russian military launched 66 ballistic and cruise missiles for air-to-surface missiles and 145 Shahid drones and decoys hitting Kyiv and 4 additional regions. Emergency crews worked through the night, combing through wreckage and searching for survivors. The bombardment came at a sensitive moment, with peace negotiations reportedly nearing a turning point. Just hours earlier, Trump had criticized Zelensky, accusing him of extending the conflict by refusing to concede the Russian-held Crimea region as part of a potential agreement. Kyiv declares day of mourning as global leaders condemn Russia's latest assault. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko has declared Friday an official day of mourning in the capital following a deadly wave of Russian airstrikes. Senior U.S. officials have cautioned that the Trump administration may soon step back from its mediation efforts if Ukraine and Russia fail to reach a ceasefire agreement, despite agreeing to a U.S.-backed truce plan over 6 weeks ago. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia has persisted with its attacks. Zelensky, speaking during a diplomatic visit to South Africa, emphasized that the continuation of peace negotiations hinges on Moscow's willingness to de-escalate. He reiterated Ukraine's firm stance against recognizing any Russian-occupied territories, calling it a non-negotiable red line. Recent Russian attacks during peace talks have included a deadly strike on the city of Sumy, where over 30 civilians were killed during Palm Sunday celebrations, as well as drone assaults on Odessa and powerful bombings in Zaporizhia. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas stated that Russia's actions contradict its rhetoric on peace. Launching a brutal airstrike on Kyiv while claiming to want peace is nothing short of a farce, she said in a social media post. French President Emmanuel Macron echoed that sentiment, urging Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop pretending he is working toward peace while continuing military aggression. Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha, asserted that the Russian president is seeking to leverage his military advantage along the roughly 1,000-kilometer front line. Putin's behavior proves he has no regard for peace efforts. He only responds to strength, not concessions, Sybiha wrote on X. Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal highlighted the human toll of the conflict, stating that since Russia's full-scale invasion began in February 2022, approximately 13,000 Ukrainian civilians, including 618 children, have been killed. According to Ukraine's State Emergency Service, at least 42 individuals were hospitalized following the latest barrage on Kyiv's residential neighborhoods. Among the victims were a 21-year-old man and his 19-year-old sister, as confirmed by President Zelensky. Scenes of devastation in Kyiv as Russia launches deadly strike using suspected North Korean missile. Emergency crews in Kyiv worked tirelessly through the wreckage of a nearly leveled residential building, pulling survivors from beneath the debris. Among them was a woman, coated in dust and crying out in pain as she was rescued by hand. Nearby, an elderly woman sat silently against a brick wall, her face streaked with blood, staring blankly as medical personnel treated her injuries. Several fires erupted across residential areas, according to Timer Kachenko, head of the city's military administration. Oksana Bailozer, a student wounded in the assault, recounted the terrifying moments after hearing the air raid sirens. As she began gathering her belongings to seek shelter, a second explosion caused her home's walls to collapse and the lights to go out. With her head wrapped in a blood-soaked bandage, she expressed her fear and hopelessness. "It's terrifying. I don't know how this ends," she said. "The only way to stop them is on the battlefield. Diplomacy doesn't work." President Volodymyr Zelensky announced via telegram that he would return to Kyiv after meeting South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Zelensky had traveled to South Africa in hopes of gaining broader support for Ukraine's resistance against Russia, now in the war's fourth year. In response to the attack, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs condemned the strike as a serious breach of international humanitarian law. Civilians are never legitimate targets. This brutal violence must end, the agency said in a statement. Among those affected was 33-year-old Anastasia Zuravlova, a mother of two. She and her children were asleep when the blast shattered their home's windows, flinging appliances and broken glass through the air. They quickly moved to a basement for safety. "It was too dangerous to stay at home," she said. In the Svyato-Shinsky district, a two-story house was completely destroyed and nearby apartment blocks sustained heavy damage. Rescue efforts stretched into the following morning. At a local school repurposed as a relief center, children helped parents cover shattered windows with plastic sheets, while families lined up for state assistance. Many wore bloody clothes and remained visibly shaken. President Zelensky stated on social media that early reports suggest a North Korean ballistic missile was used in the strike. Ukrainian security services are actively investigating the origin of the weapon. The assault, which killed 12 people and left dozens injured, has raised further international concern over Russia's growing cooperation with North Korea.